7:01, I'd like to call our board meeting to order. Mr. Robson, will you please call the roll when you're ready?
Dr. DeMarco?
Here.
Mr. Eckenrode? Here. Mrs. Parkowski?
Here.
Mrs. Tomas?
Here.
And Mrs. Newman.
Here, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening in our audience and in our virtual audience. We appreciate your participation and engagement with us. I know parking was probably a little tight tonight. We have parent-teacher conferences here at the high school. So thank you, parents, for doing double duty tonight, as board members did that as well. We'll start as soon as Dr. Lloyd comes back.
I'm waiting for you to talk that way I can.
Okay, I'll keep talking. I never have a problem with that. Dr. Lloyd will do a present on true accountability and give the board a summary update.
Oh, we're gonna do that now?
Yeah, that's the first thing, but we can pivot.
No, we're good.
Okay. Are you gonna be, I'll move.
I'll just.
Yeah,
I'm not
so
putting it
I don't want any, I want everyone else to be able to see.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go over here.
Guess I'll stand over there. Okay. All right. No, I got it right here. So what I wanted to do was just to provide, and I know I'm not going to be too verbose, at least I'm going to try not to be, because Mr. Robson's going to talk about the forecast. But the purpose of this presentation is to provide you with an update related to the transformative accountability work that we're doing. And I'm going to provide you and the audience with some background and some information that we're doing as it relates to that particular work. So first, learning organizations, I'll say this to start with, have some bureaucratic processes involved in them. And I don't want you to think that when I say the word bureaucracy versus learning organization that somehow bureaucracies are bad, because certainly there are some bureaucratic kinds of environments that are good. But if we defined ourselves as just simply a bureaucratic organization, then that has certain kinds of implications. Long ago, when we created our strategic plan, we realized that in order to work towards the district's vision of inspiring and empowering kids, we had a choice that we needed to make. Continue in kind of a more of a bureaucratic sort of framework, or try to shed that and really look at what a learning organization might be, and one, God would hope that schools would be learning organizations, but I don't think it's necessarily the case all the time. And so certainly there are some bureaucratic things that we must follow as a school district. We have policy, we have revised code, we have a few other different things. But what we're learning is that those sorts of bureaucratic kinds of things aren't going to help our organization, our school organization, really be a great organization, because the purpose really of bureaucracies aren't to be great, but really to be bureaucracies. And as a result of that, there are certain things associated with learning organizations that we really needed to think about. And there are certain behaviors that learning organizations have. First is they talk about the elephants in the room, and they don't ignore those things that are there that are unpleasant to talk about. I think that we've certainly made some strides there. We share responsibility for the organization's work. It's not just the board, it's not just the superintendent, but really everybody in the organization has an understanding really of what inspire and empower means, and has a role that they play as it relates to doing that. And then learning organizations also reflect and really look to continuously learn, whereas bureaucratic organizations just kind of function and do what it is that that they do. So I think it was about 8 years ago that we created this. And this is the elevator speech, at least in my mind, of what it is that we're trying to accomplish within Olmsted Falls Schools. And when we wrote this, we really weren't sure fully what the implications were, but they certainly were to do something different, I think, than what we had been doing before. So this is our elevator speech as far as what it is that, what are you doing in Olmsted Falls? This is kind of my go-to. That we're trying to inspire and empower kids to achieve their full potential and become meaningful contributors in a global society. I think that's overall what our vision is. Our brand is really through the inspiration, and we do this through academics, arts, and athletics. And our district's professional development focus has really been on student engagement. So we said we want to inspire and empower kids. How are you going to do that? We're going to do that through academics, arts, and athletics. And what's the kind of like fuel that you're going to put in the tank in order to do that? Well, we're going to engage students. Well, how are you going to do that? We're going to get to know them, and then we're purposefully going to design work that engages them to deeper kinds of levels of understanding. And then what we did is we said, okay, well, in order to do that, there are certain things that we're going to have to do. It's annoying, that ringing. There are certain things that we're going to have to do instructionally to that end. And so we learned about these design elements, right? And these are the 10 design strategies that our staff has been focusing on and learning about really over the course of the last, 5 years, Kelly, right? 6, going on 6 now. So everything we do, from kindergarten to high school, really is learning about these particular design elements. And then rather than teachers, as it used to be, going into their classrooms and doing these things individually, they're working in the context of grade level teams, subject matter teams, and they're really taking a look at what are the learning outcomes the kids need to know and be able to do, and what kinds of design strategies might they employ on a day-to-day basis that will allow them to learn those at a deeper level, that will engage kids, and ultimately inspire and empower those kids. So just to touch base on a couple of those, content and substance really is like learning to do something, but the substance part is learning to do it at a deeper level, right? Product focus is really focusing on work that kids care about. Now certainly there's going to be some things that they don't care about. There is going to be some busy work and things that they don't necessarily want to do, but our product focus is really trying to engage them and have them do work that they actually care about. The content or the organization of the knowledge is organized in a clear and easy to understand manner, and so we're going to check for understanding throughout that whole entire process because that helps to engage them. The clear and compelling product standards really are students understand what the expectations are, and those expectations are very clear for them. The protection from initial failures isn't that everybody gets an A, but as people, you know this as adults, as you're learning new kinds of concepts and you have this cognitive dissonance and you're sort of figuring it out, you're free to experiment and to try different things. Because if you're constantly getting a grade and there's this accumulation of points for everything, then there's this consequence. So the idea is that you're free to experiment and innovate and do those sorts of things. Affiliation is really working together with other kids, and we see that certainly in our math program and the other things that we do. In the real world, people don't necessarily work by themselves. They work in groups. Affirmation means that students are going to have the opportunity to showcase their work, and we will restart that again here at school board meetings where kids will come in, teachers will come in, and they'll talk about the different things that they do. They're doing this certainly within each building as well. Choice, that doesn't mean the kids get to pick whatever it is that they want, but what we know is that when people have some autonomy and choice over their work, really, I choose to report my learning in this particular kind of way, whether I want to talk about it, I want to present on it, I want to draw about it, I want to make something. We look to try to have that as a design quality. Novelty and variety allows kids to try and do things in new ways and in different ways. It doesn't mean that everything is that a teacher is the sage on the stage and constantly has to act and entertain. Really, it should be students are going to do things in new ways. And then the last really is the authentic part of why the work that they're doing has a sense of realness to it. So the big question is, why are you doing all these things? And I'll go back to really this, is that if we're going to try to be this learning organization and we're going to try to inspire and empower kids, we made the decision to strive to become a learning organization. And as I said, learning organizations behave in different ways. And what we need to do is to figure out ways to break out of the bureaucratic box that we're in, knowing full well that the state's going to have requirements of us. There's test scores, there's tests that we have to take that, quite honestly, I don't believe do a very good job of reporting out how kids are doing and what it is that we're working on. But nevertheless, we have to be, we're forced into that box. But those are the reasons why we're doing what it is that we're doing, is because our vision requires us to do that. So if you remember back at the last, I think it was the work session that I had you do this, this which way exercise. Does anybody remember any of the things that they put in there? And so for those that can't see it, the idea of the which way exercise is, and this would be from anybody's perspective, for board members or for citizens, residents, is to say, from your perspective, provide 5 reasons why we educate kids. And then there are 5 different things here that people would have the opportunity to report on. And then the last 2 are filled in, and they say test scores and graduation rates. That's the first part. And it says, is the reason easy or difficult? So whatever it is that you cite is the reason for educating kids. Is that an easy thing to measure or a difficult thing to measure? That is the reason that you identified over here within the current accountability system. And then the last is that reason oriented towards the future, or is it something in the past? So whatever data or the reason that you're getting, is it forward-looking in front of you, or is it behind you, right? Does anybody remember anything that they may have happened to?
I do.
Oh, there, you throw me a bone. What'd you say?
I said that we educate so they can exist and be productive citizens.
Productive
beyond
citizens. That seems like
our
a pretty good idea,
walls
right?
here.
Okay. What? Any other reasons?
To spark and enhance creativity and share that with others.
Creativity is important. Mm-hmm.
Have the opportunity to explore and find really what their calling or their special gift
So
is.
school's a place where you come in and you learn different things, you experiment and have the opportunity to find what you like and find what you don't like, right? So that's all great, and I think those are things that probably those of you that sit here go, yeah, that seems like a pretty good idea. That's the reason why we move here. That's what it is that we want to do. And then I'll say, do those things that you find are the reasons why we educate fall within the context of this particular reporting system that is in the state law? This is the report card. Everything is not rated, at least at this particular point in time, because you know, the circumstances that we've been living in. And then the question I have is that, how does this accountability system hold up against those questions that you asked here before? The reasons why we educate, is it in the system? Is it forward-looking? Is it backward-looking? And the answer is really no. I mean, these are things that we just do to check off on a list. However, these are the things that the media reports. These are the things that the realtors like to focus in on. But these are the things that really aren't the things that people want or expect from their school district. It doesn't mean that these things are bad, because certainly you want your kids to achieve. You don't want your graduation rate to stink. You don't want kids to not have progress. The problem is that each one of these things is based on a standardized test score, on a test that was designed to not do and measure these things. It was designed to measure reading. It wasn't designed to report on whether somebody's prepared for success or whether or not you're closing the gap. It wasn't designed for any of those different things. It was really designed to help teachers within the context of the classroom. And it's been used in a much larger way than what it's been designed to do. So if you're a learning organization and you're trying to inspire and empower kids and engage them and do all those other things, this isn't going to help you do that if this is what you're focusing in on. So for us, we began this this transformational accountability journey for a while. We've done it for a while, but really we formally began it this year. And it's a pretty heavy lift. As you know, We've had contracted with John Tanner from Brave Ed as our thought partner with this, and John aligns with the whole idea of what a learning organization is, and quite honestly, the things that we're doing as it relates to this true accountability or this transformative accountability aligns really within a learning organization. And so our district used some of those COVID resources that we received. We partnered with John, and we meet monthly with him, and we'll meet monthly with him for the next 18 to 24 months to learn more about what is a transformative accountability system, what benefits are we going to identify, and how are we going to report to parents on those. And then as we're learning more, we're then going to engage parents and community and say, what kinds of benefits do you expect from your school district? And we're going to say, well, we think we're doing pretty well on these, but we're not going to rely on what it is that we think. We're going to talk to our constituents and our stakeholders and ask them their opinion. We'll use a process to make the determination so all voices are heard and everything, but that's the overall thought. What we've done is we have 24 people as part of our team. In the morning, we learn from John, and then in the afternoon, we debrief as a group, and we look back based on what it is that we've learned, and then we plan and do things for the next time that we're going to meet. We focus on organizational coherence because we want to make sure that our leadership group understands, and our leadership group is teachers, administrators. Julianne Allen, who's our family engagement specialist, is also a key member of that group. But the things that we do, we say, well, what it is that we just learned, the things that we just talked about, how does it help us inspire and empower kids? Do we see the connections in what it is that we just learned with the previous things we've done as it relates to our strategic plan and our desire to become a learning organization? And what supports do those in our school buildings need in order to feel supported in doing that work? And then during the off weeks, what they do is they spend about an hour and a half with a homework assignment kind of processing and thinking about those different things as well. So that's that. As far as our organizational learning focus, again, this is what we're focusing on, and what we have focused on the first session was what is the history of the educational reform movement and what are the pitfalls of it, and what's about this over-reliance on testing, because that's really what it is. This all stems back from the Nation at Risk report that came out that said, school districts aren't doing a very good job, and then school districts really weren't taking control of different things, and so when that doesn't happen and you don't set your own vision, outsiders come in and they set that vision for you and they force you into a policy box, and then herein is the bureaucratic kind of work that we've been doing for the last 30, well, more than that, probably 50 years in education. So we're learning about education reform and the pitfalls of it, and we're analyzing the benefits and challenges of implementing this new model of accountability. One of the things that we were supposed to talk to the board about, because we all have homework assignments, was this idea of, and I talked a little bit about this last time that you guys had a board meeting, was the different forms of accountability. The accountability model that the state has, that the federal government has, that everybody has, is a protectionist accountability model. And you need those kinds of models in place to make certain that we're not drinking water with like metal in it, right, or other horrible, like the air is really bad and we can't breathe. You need certain protectionist accountabilities in place. But those things in and of themselves aren't aimed at making an organization great. They're aimed at compliance. And we don't want to be necessarily just an organization, just a compliant organization. We want to be a learning organization, and our goal is to inspire and empower kids. So we're really looking at more of an institutional accountability system, because such a system helps to make an organization great. And so the formula that we're taking a look at is this, and there are a few different parts to it. I want to just quickly review this. The idea is the benefits are going to be identified, and John has worked nationally on this work, and there are 31 national benefits that have been put out there. We'll take a look to see from our school district how our benefits that we identify align with those national benefits, but there's a list of educational benefits, some of which you already said, right? Creativity. I mean, for us, we think of the benefits of the list that we've already created with the Portrait of a Graduate. Communication, creativity, critical thinking, self-directedness, those kinds of things. But those are essentially the benefits. And then what you do, once you've identified that benefit, is you ask yourself, as it relates to that particular benefit, what kind of effort are you doing right now? Are you building capacity on that particular benefit? Are you staying course on that particular benefit? So think of a particular benefit as it relates to trying to prepare kids to be lifelong learners. And we would have, by what evidence are we willing to accept that we're doing well there? And if we think we're doing well, then we don't really have to measure that deeply at this particular point. We're going to look to another benefit, and we're going to take a look at that one. The kind of effort is, are you building capacity for that? So think of the benefit is, I'll use 21st century kinds of skills. Are you building capacity on those? Yes, we're building capacity on those kinds of things. Well, what's the timing? Well, it's going to take us, and this is the kind of communication effort that we would have with the board and certainly with our constituent groups. If that's something that we're working on, we're going to be working on that between the next 6 to 9 months, and we're going to report out on how we're doing as it relates to building capacity on that particular benefit. So that's the last part, which is the signal. We're going to signal to our community, we're going to signal to the board, and we're going to say, here's what we've done over the course of the last 6 to 9 months of how we're making an impact on this particular benefit, and we're going to report out on that. So you could foresee identifying somewhere around, think of these as like indicators, benefits, think of it like a dashboard, like 31 different kinds of things. You're not going to turn on all 31 at the same time because that would be overwhelming. You're going to pick the things that you're going to do, that you're focusing in on, that you really need to work on as a school district. And not all school buildings are the same. While they may all be working on the same benefits, they're not all going to necessarily be reporting on those exact same benefits because the high school may have a need for one particular kind of thing, and Falls Lenox may have a need to report on something else or really to do more capacity building or professional learning on that particular kind of thing. So what we're learning about is really this kind of model of identifying benefits, determining what kind of effort, capacity we need to do, what is the timeline for that, and how are we going to report out to others as it relates to that particular kind of benefit. And that's a really key kind of thing for us that we really need to focus on. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll forget my question if I don't answer it, if I don't ask it now. How true to ourselves are we going to be about, here's the benefits, and
Yeah, you'll like
here's
this answer.
where we need work?
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what we think because the benefits aren't ours. The benefits are the ones that our constituents are saying that these are the ones that you need to work on. And then we're going to say, here's the evidence that we have, and they're going, that's not enough. We don't get it. We don't accept that. We need more than that. Or they could say, that's good. Somebody else may say, well, that's good, but I want to see how the car works. So I want more details on whatever benefit it may happen to be. So we're going to provide you with more detail. The idea of benefit is that when you communicate it to the stakeholder, is you communicate it in non-technical language and a language that the stakeholder can understand, as opposed to all the educator speak that we use. All the, and Kelly and I she mentioned like map reports, the different things that we send out, it's fine, it's fine for educators. It's like all kinds of things on there, medium, low, high, whatever. Parents don't necessarily know what that means, so we're going to communicate in a language that they understand, and they're going to let us know whether or not they understand it, and if they don't, then we didn't do our job. So it doesn't matter necessarily what we think if we're doing well. What matters is what they think. Okay? Which is a pretty big shift because this doesn't really care about what anybody thinks except the Ohio Legislative Group. They created this. Okay? In session 2, we learned again about protectionists and institutional accountabilities, and really this is are some of the main things that we looked at. And we found that standardized testing is the ultimate protectionist kind of accountability because it isn't in place in order to make school districts great. It's in place in order to be compliant. Now, there are certain school districts that do well, and because they focus on those things, and they get high grades on those. And we also know that there are school districts that do particularly well because they have a particular population that has a lot of background, there's a lot of things at home. I mean, you can take a look at and correlate the kinds of things that I showed you on that report card with the median income levels of families, and it's a pretty hand-in-glove kind of thing. We've done pretty well at that game, but that's not going to make our organization great, and it's not going to help us to inspire and empower kids. And so we have the advantage, I think, of we can do well in that particular kind of realm, but we need to break away from that in order to become a different kind of organization and be a learning organization. So as we take a look at the kinds of institutional accountabilities, there are four that we explored. The first is, and they're not up there, but the first is personal accountability. I strive for excellence because it matters to me because I want to be better. So I have a personal accountability. That's an institutional accountability. It's personal accountability. Think of, for those of you who've read like Daniel Pink's Drive of Mastery, Autonomy, and Purpose, that's what drives people. That's a personal kind of accountability. An internal accountability is an institutional internal accountability. It's the kind of accountability that comes from wanting to do well to impress my supervisor or my boss. I want to do well because I want to move up in the organization. I respect my boss, my supervisor. I want to do well. That's not the kind of stuff that really that organizations like ours are, but certainly there's personal accountability that individuals may have to themselves, and internal accountabilities that they may have to their superintendent, to their principal, whoever it may happen to be. The third is a professional institutional accountability. So when I meet with my first grade team and we collaborate and work out design qualities and create units of instruction, the accountability there is I want to be a contributing member to my team. I don't want to be that one that like slacks off, right? I want to contribute. The fourth is, again, it's an institutional accountability, is an organizational accountability. And our primary stakeholders determine how well we do within that accountability based on the benefits that they expect. So personal accountability, I weigh in on that. Internal accountability, my boss weighs in on that. Professional accountability, my team weighs in on that. Organizational accountability, we're certainly going to weigh in, but it's our primary stakeholders, students and parents, that are going to weigh in most heavily on that and let us know how it is and what it is that we're doing. Okay? So that's was in session 2, and then what we started to do was really to take a look at those 31 benefits, and they're in 7 different categories. I'm not going to, I have a couple different slides that I'm going to show you what those look like, but these are the 7 categories. They make sense: student learning, student readiness, engage well-rounded students, well-being of kids, effective adults, community connections, and effective systems. Some of these are very student-focused. Some of these are to make sure that those that we hire are doing the things that they need to do. The community connections is making certain that we're asking and talking to our stakeholders about the benefits that they expect. And then the effective systems takes a look at how we're performing overall as a school district. These are these are the student readiness ones that were identified nationally. So some of them, we still have to do this work internally, but these are the ones that came at a national level. Readiness for the future, lifelong learning habits, learn to think ahead, own the work, and be noble and fair. And then there are a series of questions like, to what degree do we prepare students beyond academics for the next set of milestones in their lives? To what degree do we promote and model habits of lifelong learners? To what degree are we able to create a future-oriented focus for our students? To what degree are we able to conceptualize or contextualize learning as part of the big picture? That it's not just, I go to math class, I learn a few things, I take a test, I forget all that, I move on to the next thing. The math concepts are supposed to build on to one another for the whole purpose of understanding really what mathematics might be. But those are just some examples of student readiness. Effective adults and community connections. So here are the effective adults one. Caring and committed adults, effective teachers, student needs ahead of adult needs, and great teacher or great training and support. So the questions that you would ask are, to what degree is every adult committed to our values, principles, and culture? To what degree does every adult contribute to student benefit? To what degree do teachers create the benefits the students and their parents expect from school? But remember, we may report on what that is, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what they say, what they see as far as the benefit. To what degree do adults put students first in all aspects of schooling? And to what degree is training aligned with the mission and vision of the school? Can't just go and send people off to professional developments. Everything that we do should be aligned with trying to help inspire and empower kids. That's where all of our resources should go to. The community connections, community as partners, parents as partners, and students as engaged citizens. To what degree does the school engage the community in understanding the schools and partnering for their benefit? To To what degree do schools create meaningful parent collaborations in support of student benefit? And to what degree do we create students capable of and who participate as citizens engaged in the future of their community? So I mean, I think when you look at those, that is a far cry from like this garbage back here. I mean, and these are the things, you know, my kids are all grown now, but these are the things that if I had a first grader, these are the things that I would expect from my school. I want them to, you know, read, I want them to be literate, I want them to have mathematical reasoning. All those things are assumed in it as well, and that's actually part of the benefits as well. I just pulled some out and wanted to focus on those. But that's the student readiness. I feel that like this is us in some ways, right? All these fish are going this way, and it's kind of against the stream in some, but really it's really more of this, I think, of trying to go up the hill. It's really hard to see this right now because there's a lot of noise out there. I mean, some people here I'm suspecting and want to talk about masking and critical race theory and things like that. These are, and that's fine, we can certainly do that, but these are the things that we focus on as a school district. These are the things that we've been focusing on for the past 5 years and what it is that we're really trying to do. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'll certainly be more than happy to take them.
Jim, how does the process go beyond the building leadership teams? You know, the people that have been really engaged in this, and it's a big organization to shift.
Yeah, so we have this rule we learned. So this is not going to happen. I mean, there's a reason why it's 18 to 24 months of just learning, right? Because this is a huge lift. John has talked to us about the 20% rule. The 20% rule is that you can't change more than 20% of what it is that you're doing with 20% of the people. So you have to take small incremental steps. The first thing is for those 24 is they, in that room, they have to understand what it is that we're doing, and they have to stay a step ahead, and we have a job as a group to communicate out to everybody else. So they will meet as a building leadership team and they will talk, and then we're going to be developing strategies on how we're going to report out and bring others into the fold as well. That's part of the capacity building that is the most important kind of thing, because this is something that can't just be for 2 years. It can't be, honestly, with who the superintendent is or who the principal is. It really needs to be embedded into the culture. I mean, organizational development really shouldn't be about, I know it's influenced by who's leading the organization, but it really should be about the strategic plan, because that's what's in place and should be guiding everything. It's going to take a while to do that. That's my long-winded answer.
So John's based out of Texas.
John is based out of Texas, but has been working in Pennsylvania, Mississippi, Georgia, and a few other different states. I mean, this is the one thing that we learned from this crazy thing is you can bring people in, right?
And so who's doing this, or who's attempting this, or is anybody doing it well right now?
Yeah, I don't have a list of school districts for you, but I can get you
I
the
mean,
list.
even like Midwest,
Yeah,
you know,
there's
East
more
Coast.
than, this is the good thing, it's a good question. We're not the first one. While there was one yellow fish in that whole entire thing, there are plenty of others that are doing this work as well, that have been doing it for a number of years. We haven't talked to those people yet. I mean, we have right now, it's the Olmsted Falls cohort. The idea was that there was going to be a Buckeye cohort, but there's one here, there's one in Pennsylvania, there's one in Georgia. We have not brought that whole group together. I mean, you could see for these kinds of national networks that you're doing, that you would want to have a conference and bring people together to share ideas on what it is that they're doing so they can learn from one another. I can find that out from him, though.
I was just interested, I mean.
Yeah, I
see
wish
what
I
he
had
writes
the answer
about
for you.
Standardized testing in Texas.
Well, I mean, right, it's a big deal.
Probably worse than Ohio.
It is worse than Ohio, and he talked a little bit about Texas today because they've been doing some work with their state legislatures on that. And I think once John gets in front of a group of elected officials want to do right. I think really, we're doing what it is that we've done because we don't have anything to put in its place. And when you try to put something in its place, then they say that you're making excuses, and we're not making excuses. We're trying to build something different. So we'll say, we'll exist in both those worlds. We'll build this, and then we'll go look what we did, and we'll talk about it, we'll conference about it.
Are some of those other organizations further along in the process? So we can
Oh, yeah, they
see
are.
what it
Yeah.
looks like on the report
Yeah.
outside,
That's a
and we
good
can
idea.
see what it looks like further down.
Well, that's how he knows it works. I mean, that's the thing, because it's been done in other different places. I was at a superintendent conference in the summer, and I talked to somebody from Kentucky, he's in Kentucky as well, and they're doing that work, and it's difficult, it's not easy, but there are those people that we can speak to. Yep. Yeah, there's some, I mean, there's risk associated with it, but it's not, we're not cliff diving. We're the first one off the cliff.
Well, it's never risky to engage your community in your.
No, that's
community,
not,
so
that's the good thing.
That's the good
Yeah,
thing.
right, absolutely. It's
Right.
trying to create a different sort of measurement, well, evidence system, I'll call it.
Any other questions before we move on from the board? Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. That was super informative. Okay, so I guess we're not, no PTA report tonight? Unless, Joy, do you have, Joy? Nope.
No.
Okay.
Jen let me know
Oh,
that there's,
yep.
she's not here and there's no report.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. DeMarco, Polaris.
Nope, none have not met since the last meeting.
Okay. Dr. Tampman.
Is it working? Yeah. Okay, I just want to focus on two things. My written report's attached to the agenda for the board to read. Number one is we continue to be recruiting and searching for substitutes, certified substitutes, classified substitutes, bus drivers. There are some districts around us that are upping their teacher substitute daily rate, and so we're keeping we're monitoring that to see if that impacts our fill rates, and then if we have to respond as well. At this point, we're feeling like Olmsted Falls offers something a little special compared to some other districts. It's a good experience for the substitutes. They get experience in Olmsted Falls where they may want to have a job at some point. They also have students that are excellent students, and they're supported by the other staff and the administrators in the building. So we feel things like that give a competitive edge to us without having to necessarily just continue to up the rate. So, but we are watching that. We're going to watch those fill rates because we need to make sure that we can staff when we have PD or when we have staff simply out for sickness and absence. But really, the other one I want to focus on is November 2nd was Professional Development Day. And the Professional Development Day in November typically is a focus on technology. And so as we looked at the support staff, custodians, cleaners, utilities, bus drivers, we spent time, their directors spent time with them, focused on tech integration. So reminded them of the absence management platform and different settings they can set on there in order to increase the chances of getting a sub or a preferred sub. So that increases the call rates. Working with staff on the Employee Access Center. There's a lot of good information out there, pay stubs, W-2s, leave reports that they can go look at, and it's right at their fingertips. So we reminded them of that, made sure they could get access to it and get in there. And then also our Vitality Wellness Program. So it's an online platform, encourages wellness for staff, healthy staff, our happy staff, and working staff, so that's always good. But the staff were engaged in those activities. They were excited about those activities. A lot of the staff, custodians, cleaners, utilities, bus drivers, they're not typically sitting at a computer. They're not typically working there. They're working their job, and so that was good to have that opportunity to do that tech aspect of that with them. From the tech department on November 2nd day, in the past they've been running around tech supporting. This year, Joe worked with his staff to offer sessions and professional development on those. So the tech staff have worked to earn Google Educator Certification Level 1. Second half of the year, they're going to be working on Level 2. But they were able to come and present some tools and tricks and whatnot with Google Tools, Google Sheets, Google Forms. And so that was excellent for them to get in front of the teachers and show them, we're not just the guy that changes your light bulb on your projector or, restart your computer when there's an issue with it, but they also know the instructional side of that. So that's very good. And then with Sam and his food staff on November 2nd, they hosted both breakfast and lunch, so they were busy with that. But then also Sam took time to review processes identified by the food inspections that occurred in October. So everyone had stuff to do. Everyone was engaged and busy with that. So it was good work. But unless there's any other questions, that's it for me.
All right, Thanks so much, Dr. Tapman. Mrs. Cogan?
Hi, everyone. As we continue to try to think about ways to design opportunities for our students to be inspired and empowered, we have an opportunity where we've worked collaboratively with Baldwin-Wallace College. And starting this spring, we're going to pilot a program at the high school. It's a Lean Six Sigma Yellow Belt certificate program for high school students. We will be one of the first high schools to have this opportunity in a pilot form. So we're meeting next week to discuss the logistics, but in phase one, this will start in the spring. And for most of you, I think, for most of the board, we know, you've heard of Lean Six Sigma, which basically is a team-based problem-solving methodology used by businesses and organizations worldwide. So this is something that is recognized in industry, organizations, businesses. It's recognized if someone puts it on a resume, someone applies to college. So there are various levels of the belts that you can earn, but yellow belt is the first one. This program would start in the spring. We're going to start it with a small cohort of about 15 nominated, and we're going to work with just seniors for this year. They will have 4 half-day opportunities where they will be instructed with the Ohio Lean Six Sigma person who kind of does all of Ohio. So he will come in and work with them. We will have the students work. They will figure out a real-life problem that they will work then through this process to solve. They then, as a culmination of the work that they've done after the 4 half days, have to then present to a board of industry and business and college leaders. So they will then have to get up and present, which is part of their earning of the belt. And then they have to take an exam. And after that, they will have successfully completed this and then be able to say that they are a yellow belt in Lean Six Sigma. We are going to target students, some of our students who we know may be going to college, and some of our students who may not be taking the college path, but may be taking the, I'm going to go into business right away, I'm going to maybe go get a 2-year while working. So this is going to be very different types of students, not just for the college bound and not just for the career. So I think that'll be a good opportunity for our students as well. If that goes well, then we'll start phase 2 next year, which would be a combination of both juniors and seniors. And then after that, we would move into just a junior only. And we've talked about if we did the juniors and they earn the yellow belt, then moving to the next belt the following year. So we're really excited about this opportunity and hope to have them be able to maybe come to a board meeting at the end and share their experience with this. Any questions?
Whose idea was this?
So, well, to give credit where credit is due. So Dr. Lloyd was at a business, we have a business advisory meeting that superintendents and local businesses, business people attend. And Baldwin-Wallace was actually talking about a program that they're doing with Vitamix. So it looked a little bit different. So their program with Vitamix, it's called a Earn and Learn program. So when you are hired at Vitamix in an entry-level position, these employees have an opportunity to go to Baldwin-Wallace and take classes to be able to then be able to advance in their career at Vitamix and earn credit while they're working. So they work together with that. They're given time during their day at Vitamix to do some of their homework, to be able to get some of the things accomplished that they need to, and then they go to their courses at night. So when we heard about the partnership of the Earn and Learn, Dr. Lloyd was like, hey, maybe we should talk to Baldwin-Wallace and see if there's an opportunity for our students to do something like that. However, when we brought in Connie King, who is kind of the director of their professional development through education, through their business at Baldwin-Wallace, she came in and said, you know, I see this program as more something for businesses, but let's kind of think about what are some different ideas. And she said, you know, I don't know, we do this Lean Six Sigma thing that is a program that is at our college. And I said, oh, we're familiar with that. Many of our administrators have been through that process. So then that just started the brainstorming process of what that might look like in a high school. So, all
That's awesome.
right, that's it.
That's great.
Very good. Any questions? Okay, Mr. Robson.
I'm gonna have kind of 2 sections here. The first one, I'm just gonna talk briefly about our fiscal performance to date. And And if it's okay, then I'll just jump into the 5-year
Yep,
forecast.
that'd be great.
And that's later on in your consent agenda is the action to do that, if that's okay. Okay. So we ended October 2021 with a cash balance of $7.2 million higher than the same period last year. Revenue was $278,000 higher than last October and $3.5 million higher year-to-date compared to last year. Expenses for the month, $1.3 million higher than last October. This was driven largely by that first TAN installment payment. So that's the reason for that, and $554,000 higher year-to-date than last year. We'll be updating our spending plan to be in alignment with the forecast that we'll adopt later this evening. Couple highlights here. The efforts of the food service department continues. And once again, they received a reimbursement through the National Lunch Program in excess of $195,000 for October activity. You know, Sam ended October with a cash balance of $204,000 in October, and as of today, he was sitting at $302,700. So, tip of the hat to Sam and his team over there for the work that they're doing. I can.
Here.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
You can hear me okay? Heath Krakowiak and Joe Magray have worked with us on reducing our telecommunication costs. They have identified and removed a variety of redundant phone lines, underutilized cell phones and directory listings. Their efforts provided a communication cost savings of about $1,000 per month with no effect on the services that we're receiving. Heath and Sean Missick continue to explore possibilities in different manners in which to upgrade our bus fleet, and they are working now with the exploration of electric buses, which is kind of a new arena, with potential assistance coming from the new infrastructure bill that's out there. So there's been some new information released, and you know, what's exciting to me is they're not just gone with the same thought and same practices that they've had. Here's an opportunity, let's explore it and see if it provides benefit to us or not. So we'll take a look at those. The 5-year forecast will be provided for your approval for submission to ODE here in November, as we discussed. We can expect some change to be made probably in January to what we adopt tonight. Again, ODE is behind in releasing those settlement statements to us. They're not exactly sure yet how the new funding model is going to be rolled out, what all that means to us. They're saying now January is when we can expect that. We've had a variety of webinars lined up that were supposed to take place in October. They were moved to November, moved to January. Now they're out into February. So again, when they release those reports, if there's changes that we need to make, if there's significant differences, we'll bring that back to the board. We'll review that, reapprove it if necessary, and we'll refile. When I look at the November 2020 submission compared to what we're going to review here shortly, on the revenue side, we're very close to what we had projected for fiscal year 22 back then. We're a difference of $135,000. So despite all the changes that are being made, you know, we're benefiting from a little larger valuation increase with properties. They're going to offset some of the changes made on the funding model. So we're right in line with that. Not a whole lot of change was projected in revenues back then nor today. On the expense side, there's a bit of a difference, and remember, you know, there's a couple things that are happening here. One is with the new state funding model, they're going to be paying directly to those schools where the child's educated. Before, if it was a resident student, we would get that money, and then wherever that child was being educated, we would, you know, that money would transfer over to them. It would be reflected as a cost on our end. So those expenses will go down a bit as a result of that. So what am I trying to say here? Total expenses. So coupled with our performance from the second half of last year, our projected cash balance for fiscal year 22 is $5.4 million higher than it was in November. And I think the point I want to make here is expense control and those changes and decisions that were made a while back has really been the contributing factor of the improvement on the cash balance side. Our revenue is still pretty much in line with where we thought it would be. We're projecting it to be very similar down the road to what we thought it was. So the changes and benefits are coming on the cost side of the equation, coupled with, the ability now to defer or move some of those expenses over on the ESSER side for a few years as well. Those will come back to us at some point, but in the near term anyway, I think we're looking much better than what we are. So many thanks to everybody involved in the process for their care, attention, and decisive actions contributing to the direction we're heading now. The Finance Committee, we met for the third time Monday night. We went over the draft forecast with them as well. I think 10 minutes into it, everybody was sound asleep, so if you want a recording of that, if you have trouble sleeping, feel free to ask me for it, and we'll take care of that for you. But no, a good group. So we've had 3 meetings now. We focused a lot on the ins and outs of the financial picture, and we're taking December off. We're coming back in January, and we're going to shift our focus into the area of messaging. Okay, there's a variety of things that are coming up here in the spring that we want to work together and find, what are the main points that we need to communicate? How do we best get the word out? Combination of text and graphics and so on, and delivery methods that are there. I think Jim mentioned the state of the schools in the spring. We've got the quarterly school report that goes out, and then in the fall, we've got that annual finance report too that we'll send out. So that's where our efforts are going to be focused on here coming up. GAP, which I enjoy so much, the Medicaid audit, the state audit. We've got one last report that will be given to Julian and Grube tomorrow. That'll complete our contribution to the GAP report. Once they get that, they've got everything ready to go. That's going to be submitted November 30th. The state auditors have been provided with the documentation they've requested today. They're kind of in this holding pattern. Once the financial statements are released from Julian and Grube, then they'll jump in and start the deep work on that. And then, a variety of questions and back and forth will occur at that time. Medicaid agreed upon procedures, we've completed that, so we can check that one off. The last item we have that's coming up, and it goes with what Dr. Lloyd was just talking about with true accountability. Our piece of that is kind of being coordinated with Steve Paris within LIT, and there's a variety of benchmarks that we're establishing, and then data that we will provide that he loads up into his system that we can see how we're doing based on how we've done in the past, where we want to be, and this will give us a nice dashboard to review that. So he has been patiently awaiting the delivery of that. Any questions on what we talked about month to date, year to date?
Correct, those TAN payments, those are just once a year?
Once a year, yeah. This is my view today. As long as our second half real estate collections are in line with where we think they should be, we'll either go ahead and make that second payment early and then pay it off after that first collection next year. But I think we want to get it. We don't have the need right now for that cash with the full collection coming in this year. Yep. Okay.
And you have that for how many years?
3.
What's the payment, did you say, $553,000?
No, the payment on that is, the principal was $833, and the interest was about $45 on this one. With that, then maybe we can jump into the forecast.
Do you want me to be your,
You wanna drive?
I can do that if you want, you can explain.
I think what we'll do, Jim, we'll just kind of throw this picture up here first. And I'm just going to cover this briefly, and then there's a PowerPoint present. We'll just run through the PowerPoint, because you've seen, you folks have seen this already from the last session. On the revenue side, up top, our real estate taxes, you can see the collection results from the 8.9 mil levy that passed. So this is the first year that we're getting the full collection. So we went from 22 million, 25 million, 28.3 for this year. that's the first year of full collection. You can see here, it's flat from there on out. You know, we're gonna get a little bit from new construction, with the inside millage along with that, and then 3 years later, maybe a little bump on, the next round of reappraisals that go on. Public utility, personal property tax is really following that same pattern, you know, the increase from the 8.9 mil levy that passed. Here's where we're seeing one of our, our next big change, that unrestricted state grants and aid, like 1.035. Get like 72, and then we start to trail off a little bit again too, but, you know, we've recovered quite a bit since then as well. Next one. Just a graphical of your local versus state funding, local revenue in red, state revenue in gold there. House Bill 110, which is that new funding model, is really restoring funding to fiscal year 21 levels. When considering the direct payments, state aid still remains flat for us. Challenges to operating revenue, and this I think is what Mrs. Newman was asking before. You know, the Fair School Funding Plan made many changes to payments and expenses. The state's delayed, we talked about that a bit, in getting those models to us. So we're using the Legislative Services Commission simulations in the meantime. What that means is the state's going to be paying directly to those schools where students are being educated. So open enrollment is a big one for us. We don't have open enrollment in, right, but we have open enrollment out. In the past, that money would still come to us, and then we would pay those districts where those students were attending. Now the state's just going to pay them directly. Direct payments, student wellness success funds. A couple years back, the state, Governor DeWine had some things, some additional things he wanted schools to do and to prepare students. I think guidance and special services were a big part of that. And those monies came to us separately from the foundation. So we put those in a separate fund. Now what he's done, or what the state has done, they're just baking that all into the formula. So are we getting more? Are we getting less? Are we getting the same? We're not really going to know. It's not going to be broken out like it was before. It's just baked into the formula. But the new model ensures that we'll continue to have to rely on local taxes. General fund expenditures, you can see wages and benefits we talked about before, 84% of our total spend, and then purchase services would come in next at 10%. That 84%, some might consider that high. We like to be at 80 or below. I think what you have here, though, is not unusual. A very seasoned veteran staff. They're higher on the salary schedule, you know, so you're going to pay them more. In time, those folks retire, and you place them with new or younger teachers, and then you're on the opposite end of that. Expenses increasing 3.3% year over year, and revenue is a little bit less than 2%. So that's why we're seeing that change in 25 and 26. Revenue stagnation and a little help from the state is a major part of the issue. So as we discussed, 35% of our revenue is controlled by the state and does not grow. House Bill 110 is not providing substantial net new money. It is giving us a little bit. ESSER funds are going to be a big help to us. We're able to divert those costs, as we discussed earlier, from the general fund over to ESSER. Future funding is uncertain still for 24 through 26, as the House Bill 110 Fair School Funding Plan is not funded beyond fiscal year 23. I think we're good with that, Jim. Next one. Is that it? Any questions? Any questions? So a little better picture than what we had, I think, a year ago. And we know still the uncertainties with the state, which are a concern. I've always felt the state had played nicely with us, and even when times were tough, we could count on a certain level of funding from them. But in 20, you know, the rules changed, and they cut us hard in 20. didn't fully restore us in '21. So, at this point, we have to regain some confidence in them and their ability and commitment to fund schools.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, are there any questions from the board? Now would be the time, because this is on the consent agenda to approve, so we can file with the state. Again, and just reminding the board and our audience, we do file a 5-year forecast with the state 2 times a year in our fiscal year. So we will file this in November, and then we'll file again in May of next year, toward the end of our fiscal year. It's a good check and balance. Okay, thank you everyone for your reports tonight. Lots of good things to talk about and understand. We're now to the hearing of our public, and we have several people that would like to address us tonight. I would like to first call up Mrs. Kirsten Avens. I'll remind our speakers you have 5 minutes to address the board.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Abens, and I have a first grader in the district. It's only November, and the children on our little tiny street have been involved in 2 bus accidents. I understand accidents happen, and thank God no one was injured. And Dr. Lloyd, thank you for putting out that memo regarding bus safety. It's very, very important. The issue that I'm bringing before the board is the lengthy response time in notifying parents. The first accident was earlier this year, and it was involving 2 transfer buses at OFIS. So my pickup time for my son is 3 o'clock, so I'm standing out there waiting with all of my neighborhood parents. And a gentleman who lives on our street comes out to tell us, hey, did you hear about the bus accident? We're like, no. He's like, oh yeah, it happened 25 minutes ago. So we're like, all right, fine. It's a beautiful, sunny, hot day. So we're just like, all right, we'll just hang out here and talk and wait for the kids. We waited 30 minutes for our bus to come late. And after my son arrived home was the first time I heard anything from the district. My son told me they were forced to sit on a hot bus. He was hot and so sweaty and forced to wear a mask on the bus. If the district is so concerned about the spread of COVID-19 on buses, wouldn't the smart choice be to remove the children from the bus so they can be socially distanced and not sit in a hot car for who knows how long? I was unhappy with this, but I did give the district the benefit of the doubt. I was like, you know what, stuff happens. But a few weeks ago, our children were involved in another accident. This time, it was a passenger car hit the bus on the way to school. Similar situation, almost an hour until parents were notified. That timeline is unacceptable. I can't speak for the ECC or OFIS, but the students at Falls Lenox were taken to school and taken straight to their classrooms. Many children in the district take advantage of the free breakfast and lunch program. All of these kids who take advantage of it went without breakfast that morning. The accidents and the response demonstrate that the district is ill-equipped to handle emergencies. Thank God there weren't any injuries. But what if next time there are? The policies the district has in place for emergencies need to be looked at. Obviously, changes need to be made, especially in parent notification. An hour is too long to let me know my child has been involved in a car crash. Thank you.
Can I ask, I'm gonna ask, I'm not gonna ask about that.
You can ask.
Either Jim or Dave, can you tell us about how the notification process works when there is an accident? Is that something
I think it's a combo answer of James and Kelly, because it's something that we know that there was a delay, and that, and we have some things that we're working through. I don't know if, James, if you could talk on the specificity of that, and Kelly, if you can add color commentary on it.
Yeah, I would say after both incidents, we had a debrief to say, how can we do this better? So we're obviously looking to always improve ourselves. The transfer bus did add an element of difficulty because we have assignments for the buses that the students ride in the neighborhood, not necessarily the transfer buses, because they're transferring to the bus that then takes them to the neighborhood. So that additionally, starting in the summer and now we're nearing the end of the conversion is our, it used to be Versatran, which is the bus routing system. We've now upgraded to a new system, can't remember the name right now, but that will provide us additional accessibility for rosters and notification systems within that. So once that's fully operational in the next couple of weeks, that'll be approved as well.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, you know it's a problem, and 1 hour, you're right, is absolutely too long for that, and that's one of the things that we were looking at, and I think that software, you'd be surprised of how it was antiquated it was before, and that's gonna help out considerably, so we hear you, we
Thank
agree.
you.
Great. Next up, Mr. Matt Avens.
Good evening. As mentioned, my name is Matthew Avens. My comments tonight relate to Board Member Parkowski's remarks made near the end of the September 20th, 2021 board meeting. The remarks I'm referring to, which were in response to a rhetorical question as to whether the police presence we've seen at past meetings were meant to intimidate us as citizens, begin at approximately the 1 hour, 22-minute, 40-second mark of the YouTube video for the 9:20 meeting. In her statement, Ms. Parkowski claims she wants police presence at board meetings because she, quote, personally have sent a message as a school board member that it's time to thin the herd of the school board and talk about weapons that that person owns, end quote, and, quote, I have filed police reports in my day here against people who have threatened me, end quote. Public records, however, do not reflect that Ms. Parkowski was personally sent a message as a school board member that it's time to thin the herd. To that end, a public records request was made on October 7th, 2021, specifically requesting the message or messages Ms. Parkowski referenced. All that received was in response were some Facebook screenshots from a Mr. Clem. The first of these, dated April 26, shows some Tupperware containers with ammunition. There's no reference to the board, Ms. Parkowski, nor the district in the post. The second is Mr. Clem's profile picture dated December 14, 2020, which is a skull and says, kill them all, let God sort them out. Again, no reference to the board, Ms. Parkowski, nor the district. Finally, there was a post from a Facebook forum of some kind. Post in that form, again, neither mentioned the board, neither mentioned Ms. Parkowski by name nor referenced any weapons. Again, these were the only documents the district produced in response to a request specifically asking for the message Ms. Parkowski claimed to have personally received threatening her. But these Facebook posts were not personally sent to Ms. Parkowski, nor referred to her directly by name. Moving on, Ms. Parkowski also stated that she filed police reports against people who have personally threatened her. I'd like to take a closer look at that. Pursuant to public records requests for police reports made by Ms. Parkowski or reports concerning her home address from January 1st, 2013, which was 1 year before Ms. Parkowski was elected to the board, through the present, outside of minor traffic problems, there were only 3 police reports that were made. Of those 3 police reports, only 1 concerned Ms. Parkowski as a member of the board. That lone report was made on February 18th, 2018, regarding another Facebook post. Per the police report, quote, Ms. Parkowski stated that she noticed the comment made by a member stating, hang the liberal school board, then get rid of Common Core. Ms. Parkowski was also upset that a Jenny Sanderson McKeague liked the comment. Ms. Parkowski stated that she felt concerned by those comments made online and stated she has been having online arguments for months now with those individuals listed above over issues within the school system, end quote. However, what is quite telling from this report is the concluding paragraph, which reads, quote, Ms. Parkowski was advised this appears more of as an open threat and not ones directly made to her or putting her life in danger. She agreed. She was advised to come back up if the comments become more personal and she feels threatened for possible charges. Again, Ms. Parkowski agreed that she was not directly threatened. And since February 18th, 2018, despite allegedly being personally threatened, Ms. Parkowski apparently has not gone back up and made any other reports to the Olmsted Falls Police Department regarding being personally threatened. And just in case anyone thinks I'm picking on Ms. Parkowski, public records requests were sent to the Falls and Township Police Departments related to the other board members and Dr. Lloyd for any and all police reports made between March 1st, 2020, 2 weeks before schools were shut down for the rest of that school year, and the present. Those public record requests revealed that no police reports related to these individuals' work with the district were made within that time period, nor were there any other emails or documents produced by the district documenting any actual personally directed threats to the board or the superintendent from March 1st, 2020 through November 1st, 2021. But then again, why would they make any reports? Because even the thinning the herd comment, which allegedly prompted the presence of officers at the board meeting, was viewed as a joke by the superintendent and at least one of the board members. Specifically, when discussing the alleged threat and having police present, Ms. Newman texted to Dr. Lloyd, quote, "Let's do this." Dr. Lloyd joked back, "Which part, firing the superintendent or thinning the herd? Honestly, both is like killing two birds with one stone." And Mr. Eckenrode laughed at Dr. Lloyd's response. If this was perceived as a legitimate threat, would it really be something that would be made light of or joked about? Given the fact that during her tenure on the board, Ms. Parkowski has made just one police report wherein she actually agreed that there was no direct threat to her or did not put her life in danger, and there have been no other documents detailing direct personal threats to the board or the superintendent for the past 20 months. The question still remains if the police presence that we had seen in the past was actually meant to protect the physical well-being of the board or to protect the board from community criticism via police intimidation. By the way, it has now been 79 days that my wife's email has gone unanswered. Thank you.
Can I make a comment? I just want to make a comment about, and I can't answer for everybody else as far as what you personally felt. I mean, I didn't feel intimidated by anybody at a meeting. And I didn't, what I did is I asked the board whether or not they wanted a cop here, and it wasn't to threaten anybody, but, during the course, I think, of the last 8 months, we do this, and I'm sure you've seen different Facebook posts of different board meetings and kind of like the discourse between those who are in the public and those who are sitting at the table. And what I didn't want was for that kind of discourse to happen. So the purpose of a police officer, and I appreciate our police officers a lot, and I'm sure that you guys do as well, wasn't to intimidate anybody, but if something were to happen, we would have somebody there who could intervene, and that was the purpose of it. For me, I mean, you can draw your own conclusions, Matt, on what it is that you found, but that's the reason why I contacted the chief and asked him to send somebody. There's actually supposed to be somebody here tonight too, but they must not have been able to get coverage is what my assumption is. And it's not to scare anybody, but it's just to, if anything were to happen of people yelling and screaming, which I've been very thankful that none of that has happened. I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't have some concerns at the onset that might happen, but I think that we've been able to have discourse with things. And I'm proud of all of us for that, because that's not how it's been in some other different places. So that's the reason why I did it. I asked and they said do that, but that's the reason why I made the call.
Our last speaker tonight, Mr. Travis Tomlinson.
Sorry for my sweatsuit, but I was coaching my son's basketball game. Good evening, my name is Travis Tomlinson. I've been a resident in the Olmsted Falls School District for 6 years. I have 3 children that live in the district. My son is in 2nd grade and my 2 daughters will be in kindergarten next year. I made the decision to send my son to St. Mary's of the Falls because of the restrictions placed on students' education in the Olmsted Falls School District. This was a difficult decision because I always wanted my children to attend public school. I am currently evaluating what to do for next year for my 3 children. I would like to see changes in several key areas regarding our district in order to feel comfortable sending my children to Olmsted Falls. I have a lot of concerns, but I don't have time to address them all this evening, so I'll start with the school board. I have no doubt that all of you have good intentions and are good people. Any criticisms or concerns that are expressed by me are not intended to be taken personally. Instead, I hope to provide my input to improve the trust and relationships between the board and the community. Transparency. As elected officials, it is the role of the school board members to represent the community in regards to the school district's decisions and policies. It is an important role and one that should be done transparently. When the superintendent directs the elected board members to withhold their views from the public so that they do not run opposed in an election, that is not transparent. This strategy was effective in achieving the superintendent's goals, but it carries a cost in creating mistrust in the community. Accountability. The community wants a board that represents the community and not one that exists as a rubber stamp for the superintendent. Regarding the mask issue, a majority of parents opted to unmask their children. 4 days into the school year, the superintendent unilaterally overruled the desire of the community and implemented a face mask mandate. His reason was that it was unfeasible to implement his plan as submitted to the state, and that the only option was to implement universal masking. In his own words, the superintendent stated, believe it was 2 board meetings ago, that he was submitting his plan to the state. When submitting his plan to the state, he thought he was engaging in, quote, silly paperwork to satisfy a state requirement. The result of this approach was the abandonment of the desire of majority of parents and students to attend school without a mask. As a school board, it is your duty to hold the superintendent accountable for his actions. Maybe it was an unthoughtful approach, and that led to the chaos that ensued when trying to implement the plan. Some people in the community believe that the plan was not haphazardly constructed, but intentionally created to cause chaos so that universal masking could be implemented against the will of the parents and students. I don't know what to believe, but I do know that neither of these scenarios are acceptable. The loss of trust has consequences. Integrity. Parents and community members are beginning to take more interest in their schools as a result of the pandemic. This is a good thing. Schools should encourage community input and oversight, even if it generates opposing views and policy disagreements. Some parents in this district are afraid to express their view publicly over fear of retribution by some members of the school administration. This is harmful and should end. Case in point, as a result of a policy disagreement and parent activism, a parent in the community who is a doctor was disinvited to a health fair that he attends annually because the superintendent doesn't tolerate dissent. Accountability, integrity, and transparency are all things that we want our children to hold in high regard. If we expect this out of our children, then we must expect them out of our elected board members and school administration. Thank you.
Yeah, Travis, where you been? I mean, we've submitted plans. Okay.
Pardon the interruption, the time is 8:28. Just want to remind everyone that parent-teacher conferences will conclude at 8:30. I just ask that we're respectful as we wrap up the conversation. The teachers do have a long day tomorrow, educating our kids, and so that I'm hopeful that we can conclude conferences here in the next few minutes. Thank you.
Quarantine rules, well, it was, you had to submit a plan at the beginning of the year to the state, right, in regards to policies and quarantining and contact tracing and all.
We had a
all
requirement that
inclusive
we had to
plans,
submit a
right?
plan that we wrote in June and then updated that probably about 4 to 5 different times. Yeah, and that plan was submitted without masks originally. And the board, and this is why I asked where have you been, because at the March 2020 board meeting, the board put a policy into place that said specifically that the superintendent's supposed to make the determination of when to implement the masking policy and when not to implement the masking policy. And so I guess I would, at this point, we don't have masks in Olmsted Falls schools. I'm not sure what they're doing at St. Mary's, but we don't have them for our students here. But we started without, and then we put them on because of the rising levels, and the quarantine guidelines were significantly different then compared to where they are at this particular point in time. So it wasn't an arbitrary move. It was a move that the school board requires me to implement that policy or not implement that policy. And when you implement a policy, you don't submit a survey to the community and ask them, what do you want to do or what do you don't want to do. You implement the particular policy. So I would argue that it wasn't arbitrary, that it was the board that passed that particular policy. The board always has the right to take back that policy if they want to. But we've changed that recently, and we have, 3 weeks worth of data now and we're not masking. I'm not going to lie that I'm concerned where things are going, but because of the the freedom, I guess, or discretion within those quarantine guidelines, I think we're able to continue to do what it is that we've done. If we didn't have those, we'd all be wearing masks at this particular point in time, just because we'd have a lot of kids in quarantine. They'd all be home. We would probably be home. So I can't really, I guess, answer the other. I mean, for me, the integrity thing and why Scott was disinvited to the health fair, people have the right to freedom of speech. Freedom of speech, certainly people can say whatever it is that they want, but we have the ability to choose which vendors and which vendors we're going to deal with and which vendors we're not. and we chose not to. So,
Why?
I mean, you're gonna have somebody who's saying, you know, bad things about me and bad things about the school district, and we're gonna say, hey, come on into the health fair and be around our staff. I think people would look at me, I mean, just being absolutely candid with you, I think people would look and say, that's pretty silly, don't you think? I mean, I gotta stand in front of my people as well, so people always have the right to criticize. You can do that all day long, that's fine. But you think, I mean, you're gonna come into the health fair and like be around staff and do that? I mean, come to a board meeting and criticize. Scott, you're more than welcome to call me on the phone and do that, but we're gonna invite you to the health fair? And we have that ability to be able to do that. He received no resources for that, for doing it or not doing it. But we have the discretion to be able to choose who we invite to the events and who we choose not to. I'm not gonna get into all the
Okay, yeah.
Facebook posts that you have on there. I mean, we all know what they are,
So we're gonna move on with the agenda now. This is not a back and forth. This is just an address of the board. So we're going to move on with our agenda. Thank you very much for the people that did address the board. Moving on to our consent agenda. I'll accept a motion from the board for the approval of consent agenda items in categories 5 through 8.
So moved.
Is there any discussion on consent agenda items listed in categories 5 through 8 from the board? Mr. Robson, will you please call the roll?
Dr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Mr. Eckenrode? Mrs. Barkowski? Mrs. Tomasz?
Yes.
And Mrs. Newman?
Yes, motion carries. We have a separate action item, item 10A, approval of technical support agreement with Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I'll accept a motion from the board on item 10A.
So moved.
Mr. Robson, will you please call the roll? I'm sorry, is there any discussion before we call the roll?
Are we talking the CCM? Yeah, it's an annual kind of thing, just to accept their services. There's not a financial kind of thing at all, but because Linda's affiliated with it.
Yeah, that's why it's
Pulled out
That's why
of
it's pulled out.
consent.
Mr. Robson, will you please call the roll?
Dr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Mr. Eckenrode? Mrs. Tomasz?
Yes.
Mrs. Barkowski? And Mrs. Newman?
Yes. Item 10B is the meeting dates for the calendar year 2022. Mrs. Walker, I'm assuming you got these dates? Did someone send you? Oh, no, because they're on the board agenda. Okay. Can we have Debbie Fallon please send these in an email to us and not just on the board agenda? Mrs. Walker needs those dates as well. So, board members, you need to look, as well as administration that's at the table, you need to look at those dates.
The time is now 8:35. At this time,
Oh, that's awful. Mr. Spagnola, the man from above. So, we need to, everyone needs to look at those dates and understand the dates for the calendar year 2022. So just to remind the board, work session dates sometimes move around. We try not to move any dates around, but that is unrealistic. We are a little bit more flexible to reschedule a work session. We, at all costs, try not to reschedule the third Thursday meeting, which is this meeting, because the community knows that the board is meeting on the third Thursday of every month in room 606, and we don't want to change that. So you need to look, if we do change it, we need to do it at the beginning of the year, and we will be voting on this at our organizational meeting in January. So, by our next regular meeting, which is December 16th, everyone needs to send emails to say, this date is, I have a conflict on this date. And again, we get it that it's hard to predict when you're gonna go maybe on vacation in July or something, but it seems to work out every year. So Kelly, we'll have an email come out for those dates, so you know. So one more thing I would like to talk about this, and this is a proposal that I would like to make to the board. So forever, since the existence of the Olmsted Falls School Board, we have met at 7 o'clock on the third Thursday of every month. And I like the third Thursday. I'm thinking the 7 o'clock, would like to propose that we change and meet at 6 o'clock. And our work sessions as well, instead of 7 o'clock. And I would like some discussion on that from the board.
It could be problematic for me in the second semester next year because, so for example, in the spring, I teach until 5 o'clock in Akron. So, but not on Thursdays. So I'm good, but I don't know that until, but you know, at a minimum, it would only be September, October, and I could, I mean, we may have to have, I just can't, I can't know.
Second semester,
Which starts in, well, fall, I'm sorry, fall. I'm thinking of the second semester of the 2022 year, or fall semester of 2022. It just, 6 could be hard. 6:30? Could be that it won't be a problem.
So it would be maybe 3 meetings, or no, it
Right,
would be,
yes.
no, it would be 6 meetings, because if we decide to move our work sessions to 6 o'clock. This
Yeah,
is,
true.
so I chatted with Dr. Lloyd and Mr. Robson about this. The reason why I'm proposing the changes, there are so many school events
Yeah.
that start at 7, basketball games, you know,
Right.
sports events, play, you know, things that students are in that people want to go to. They also might want to attend our board meeting. We have children of our own that are in those events that we don't get to go to because our board meeting, you know, starts at 7. If we started an hour earlier, would we be able to make some of those events that we don't get to make? Also, I think about, there have been many long board meetings and late nights that were discussing very important things for the district at 10 o'clock at night. You know, is there a way that we can push that up further? So I think this is something that we need to think about and not come to a conclusion tonight, but maybe by the December 16th meeting, when we've kind of all had a chance to look at the dates and say we're good, and then think about, you know, would you be able to make a 6 o'clock meeting? And is that something you're interested in doing? You know, Brett lives an hour away, so it gets late for him. Again, he's not complaining, but it's just something to think, it's just something to think about. I think 5:30 is too early, right? A lot of people can't make 5:30 because of their work schedule, and, you know, people that want to attend our board meetings, that's hard. There's many boards that meet at 6 o'clock, I think. I know, now I think I know, so. Sorry, Linda, you get off, and now we're switching till 6. You've got it out all this time at 7. It would have been nice. 6 o'clock? Right.
Coming, being here at 6.
Downtown,
Yeah.
be here at 6, you know, come from Akron, be here at 6.
Right.
Yeah, I'm hearing-
And it might not work, right? So, I guess it's a proposal, it's a thought,
Maybe 6:30.
maybe, and maybe it's 6:30, even a half an hour, I think, would help us out. So let's say that we'll kind of decide by the 16th of December if we're going to make that change. Because I think if we make it, we should make it at the beginning of the year, of the calendar year, next year, if we can. I guess we could sort of postpone it and start it at the school year in September, but, you know, I'm just throwing some ideas out there. Okay. Are there any other questions about board meeting dates and stuff like that? Okay. Board retreat, we have a date, right? We have a tentative date that was sent out. I have to look at my email. 11th and 12th, isn't that what it is?
Of February.
Right.
It is, yes, that's a Friday, and it's Saturday.
So when I had a gender review meeting with Dr. Lloyd and Mr. Robson, we chatted a little bit about the board retreat. And Dr. Lloyd made an outstanding suggestion that he's going to implement for us. So he's gonna, if he's still agreeable to do this, which I think he is, send out a survey, you know, kind of like a survey to the board on broad theme topics. Would you like to talk about this? Would you like to talk about that? And then there'll be an opportunity for you also to input what, if it's not on there, I think we should talk about this. You know, do you want to stay overnight? You know, do it Friday afternoon, Friday, you know, early evening, stay overnight, and then most of Saturday, you know, be home by late Saturday afternoon. Do you just want to make it one day? Those things will kind of be on the survey, and then gather some information from the board, and then we'll be able to then set the agenda for the retreat. Sound good?
I like that idea. for
I like
getting
that
input.
idea too, and I was glad that he brought it up. I felt I was struggling to try and get it together, and this way it's kind of like fill it out, and then we'll gather some themed ideas so we know where to go. Again, we're trying to parlay it with Anissa Rowland from Schlechte, her work here and being here in the district at that time, so then she can attend our board retreat for part of it. And yes, Kelly, yes. So that's where we're at. So I guess at the moment, put that on your calendars. All right. Is there any other general board discussion at this time? Our next meeting is December 2nd. Our work session is December 2nd, and our regular meeting is December 16th.
Have you gotten any topics from, I'm trying to think what December 2nd.
Yeah, what
topics
do
we might
we?
have, what the board needs to
Yeah.
to talk about, or what the board would like to talk about. I don't know if they're.
So we did also kind of talk about this, setting work session topics for next year. And so I recall a time when I was new on the board, we never had work sessions for years, never. We had one meeting a month and that was it. And I think somewhere between that and a work session every month maybe is the right answer, right? And yes, it would be great to try and predict when we don't need a work session, but sometimes that's hard to do. And I think that since we got back to having work sessions, regular work sessions, we have accomplished a lot of really good things in the district. So I think they are necessary. one I,
Yeah, we didn't do July or something like that.
One, we didn't, yeah, the whole notification thing was interesting too, so that's what I like to think of.
right, so we need to, right. So, and again, we certainly don't, if there's nothing immediate to discuss that couldn't wait till the December 16th meeting, we should not have a work session, right? That's
right.
right? And I don't, to my knowledge, there's nothing, like, we don't have a list of topics at the moment, so it looks like maybe we could cancel the December 2nd work session. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we're saving up things like, what's the totality of our capital improvement projects for like a board retreat to have you guys understand the different capital outlay projects that we have, roofs and other kinds of things. I guess I would ask James or Kelly if you can think of anything that, you've set the goals and objectives for Brett and I, that's
Right.
done. We don't have policies, I think, up for review right now.
Well, Kelly and I, between the board members, haven't come out often.
Yeah. I think we should meet. Let's talk about, no. No, I don't have anything.
I can't, I mean, other than.
Let's not meet for
dreaded
the sake of
COVID,
meeting.
I don't know if there's anything else.
No, and we don't need to meet, just to, you put out the I mean, the information's out there to parents every, so we don't need to meet for that. I mean,
Right.
okay, well, it looks like we are canceling our December 2nd work session. Well, that was easy. So, let's agree to this, to blast it out in every way possible, and that night, put a sign on the high school door, right?
Yeah, we blow it.
Let's do that. I mean, let's put a sign on the high school door.
I mean, we do have the emails of people who normally come to the board meeting, do we not? I mean, we could notify, those are the people that
It's true. just to
probably
make
are going to show
extra-
up to just say, just letting you know we've canceled the work session.
Right,
Yeah, the sign on the doors is one, and any other way.
right, because some of the people that are coming don't have kids in the district, right?
I mean, you
Do that have
guys
students?
came last time, did you not?
They
To the one that got
canceled.
canceled?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
The officer was here as well.
So
Yeah.
what way would be the way to let you know that it was canceled?
I know you had mentioned before, the website was, kind of outdated, so that, to me, that's my primary way of looking
You
at
go
the
there.
website.
Okay.
Like the homepage, not going to the board docs and then the board meetings.
Okay, you did, right, you go
Yeah.
digging,
That's a
Yeah,
lot of
that's-
digging.
should be easier. Okay.
Yeah, we'll have a blog update, won't we, Kim? Yeah, so we can put it on there. But again, I'm thinking like Mr. Dean, and
It's true.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's coming, I don't know if they're coming to work sessions or not.
He was here last week.
He-
Was
Yeah.
he at the
He was
last
at the
work?
last
Oh,
one.
yeah, he was, because
He
that's when we
was.
did the forecast. All right,
Okay.
I like Kelly's idea of people that have been coming that have registered, then we have an email for them, right? So why not
yeah.
let them know?
Is that,
I don't know.
What we can do
Yeah.
is we can think about how we're gonna notify them. We don't have to solve that problem tonight,
Okay.
other than
Okay.
admit
Good
that
point.
the way that it occurred last time was bad,
good.
and we need to get better at that,
Okay.
and so we'll get better.
well, and
Talk
this
about
is
how we-
like, this is a further notice out that we're canceling it, so, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. If there is no further discussion from the board, I will accept a motion for adjournment at 8:50 PM.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Robson, will you please call the roll?
Dr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Mr. Eckenrode? Mrs. Parkowski? Yes. Mrs. Tomasz?
Yes.
And Mrs. Newman?
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
So, Mrs. Adrian,